All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Melissa, for the lovely interlude music. Um, Welcome to everyone. We've had a nice increase of participants. Thanks for those who were in the business meeting, and we're happy that the rest of you are joining us now. Um, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Jeffrey Knapp. Jeff is from Penn State University. He is the Larry and Ellen Foster Librarian for Communications there. He serves the Belisario College of Communications, the largest accredited mass communications program in the United States. In addition to library and information science, his academic background includes international politics and history with professional experience in marketing and communications. Jeff believes it's his professional responsibility to be interested in everything. His research interests involve the role of academic librarianship and potential futures for the profession in an ever-changing information environment. So join me in welcoming Jeffrey as he talks to us about the power of presence, uncovering the unasked questions. Welcome and thank you, Jeffrey.
Well, thank you very much for having me. So let's see if I can get my screen shared here. Bear with me. Okay. Okay, so good morning and happy Friday, everybody. Before I get started, I want to thank the Western Pennsylvania and West Virginia chapter for the invitation to deliver this keynote address. I'm incredibly honored. This is my first keynote. So I will try to overcome my imposter syndrome long enough to deliver what I hope will be some useful things to think about in your practice of librarianship. I'd also like to acknowledge of course, the extraordinary times that we're living through right now on many different levels, which in all honesty dwarfs anything I plan to discuss here today. But more than anything, for all of you, I wish us all to be well, to be happy, and to be free from suffering. Okay, so I wish us all the best at this time. So onwards. So a little bit about me. Thank you for the nice introduction. I think all librarians bring a little bit of their own history and backstory to their practice. Many of us have had non-traditional career trajectories that led us to the profession, and I'm no different. I studied international politics and history as an undergraduate, never really had much of a career plan. But all I knew was that I was interested in everything. I wanted to just kind of understand the overarching, the global kind of how stuff works, how the world operates. After graduating, I was fortunate to land a respectable white-collar job at a Fortune 500 financial services company. So I kind of was one of the many cogs in the corporate wheel, in the corporate machine, I should say. It helped pay the bills. It was a good company and everything like that, but I had no love, for the job itself. But I did manage to identify the aspects of the job that I did like. I liked helping people, and that's something I did from occasionally, working with customers and investors. And I liked the writing and explaining complex financial concepts to our customers, because I created like marketing materials and kind of educational materials on investing strategies for retirement and things like that. So being interested in everything and liking to help people led me to decide after about 12 years, that library school at Clarion University would be my next step. So shout out to Clarion. While there, I had an internship at the Penn State Libraries, which led to a part-time job that I had there as a teaching assistant while I was finishing up my library degree. I worked in their social sciences library, helping teach a course on government information and legal resources for undergraduates. And then from that, I learned that I really enjoyed teaching, and I really enjoyed working closely with students. My first full-time librarian job was at Penn State Altoona. Shout out to Penn State Altoona. As I was the coordinator of instruction there. Okay, this is around 2005 when I started. I was living in State College at the time. Had to drive about 45 minutes to get there each day, so that wasn't ideal, but it really was the perfect location for me to start my career. I really cherished that time that I had there with all the many people I worked with, both in the library and outside of the library. I love the fact that I could be responsible for certain subject areas, as we would all have to be, but I also got to be a generalist. I loved being able to work with so many different subject areas, see how they differed, how they were similar, and how they interacted with each other. I also love the fact that I had the wealth of resources of a large, R1 research university. Of course, University Park has, I think, 45 to 50,000 students. But at Altoona, of course, it was at a campus that had only maybe about 4,000 undergraduates. So it was really easy to connect with faculty and things like that. So I was able to collaborate with a lot of people. I did some really rewarding work embedding the library there into an undergraduate research lab, and began a research partnership with a sociology professor, Nicholas Rowland, that has continued actually to this day. I also did some thinking and writing about how research, of course, is becoming much more interdisciplinary in academia, and some roles that I think librarians can play in facilitating that work. So as you are all familiar, assuming in academic libraries, frequently they're structured in a way that librarians have to be kind of specialists in certain disciplines. And it never really appealed to me, that portion of it. Until, that is, the current position as librarian for communications opened up at University Park, of course, Penn State's largest campus. In my current role, I work with the recently named Belisario College of Communications. So that includes departments of, departments of journalism, journalism, advertising, public relations, film, media studies, things like that. Also some speech communications I work with. So not only were these disciplines that I did have an appreciation for, but they are also disciplines that are concerned with, when I say everything, which leads me to my favorite library quote. Okay, this is from a philosopher. Okay, so back in the 1960s, named Abraham Kaplan, wrote a few articles. I encourage you to take a look at them from this time, because I still think they have a lot of resonance. And in this quote, what he's actually doing is he's comparing philosophy, or the role of a philosopher, with the role of a librarian. Where he says, librarianship has thrust upon it as its appropriate domain the whole of knowledge, the whole of culture. Nothing is supposed to be foreign to us, and we ought to be prepared under suitable circumstances to be helpful with regard to any and every area of human concern. Okay, so yeah, it sounds kind of bombastic, but still, I think it underlines the fact that, we have to be ready to kind of handle anything. I mean, whether we're specializing in a certain subject area, new issues that arise in the world often affect more than, say, one subject area or discipline. So the thing that I really loved is, that with media and working with media and communications is, the media is concerned with all subjects at some point in time too, just as all subjects have a media component in them. Okay, so many times what I find, I'm working with people who are in media studies and communications, wanting to do research on, say, medical communications, like our health advice and how that's communicated. Where on the flip side, many times I'll also sometimes work with people who are in the medical fields and they're interested in the media component. Okay, so there's always that kind of interchange that we have there. So I take my role as a liaison librarian very seriously. I generally go about my business as if the only way people in the departments I serve will know about things in our collection is if I tell them about it. Okay, that's kind of the way I kind of feel like I have to make that connection. Of course, that's not literally true. Many, if not most, know how to search our collections, of course, for what they need. But my question is always, will they? In today's environment, I just don't feel confident that people will always use our systems to find what they're looking for. So to me, being present, or whether you want to call it embedded or connected, immersed, engaged, or whatever, being present with our faculties and our students is, to me, the singular most important guiding factor in the success of our mission as librarians. If people don't know about what we have and what we can do for them, then the library can end up just being a warehouse / study lounge. So how does this concept of presence relate to our conference's theme? Innovate, communicate, and collaborate. Okay, so for innovate, let me say right off the bat, I'm not much of an innovator. At least when you're comparing to Steve Jobs or Jeff Bezos or somebody like that. In my personal practice of a librarianship, I often think of innovation in terms of efficiency, right? I mean, many times innovations are a product of trying to increase efficiency and make things smoother, reducing barriers, large barriers, small barriers that might get in the way of people using our collections and services. I'll discuss that in more detail in the next section. But there are some cautionary things to consider with innovating and efficiency seeking. Make sure that an efficiency that you're looking for will truly improve the experience for our users rather than just making less work for us. Both considerations are very important, of course, but always just being aware. Okay, so there's a great story that was featured in an episode of This American Life. I don't know if you guys listened to This American Life. It's a public radio show that, of course, is now available as a podcast. And it's about this little snippet. I have the link there. You can find it online. That is about the Vienna Sausage Company of Chicago. Okay, this story I think is a good analogy for this. So this company makes a popular hickory smoked hot dog in Chicago. They've been doing it for years. A very old company in the north side of Chicago. Well, years ago, they decided to modernize and move into a new state-of-the-art factory on the south side of town. Stainless steel everywhere, super clean, super efficient. But the problem was, in the new facility, they found out that the hot dogs they didn't taste the same. They didn't taste bad, just didn't taste the way people who always love their hot dogs that I thought they tasted. They didn't have, for example, things like, they didn't have a snap when you bit into them. They were pink rather than the deep red that they used to be. They were just really stumped because, in their eyes, they were doing everything the same. They had the same exact recipe. They were using all the same ingredients and everything like that. Until they discovered that in the old factory, there used to be this guy's name was Irving, who used to have to cart the hot dogs after they were made over to the smokehouse, okay, where they were cooked. Apparently his path as he carted these things over was a long and twisty one. It would go through a lot of corridors and everything like that. And through actually some very warm areas. Like I guess they would actually have to go through like the boiler plant and things like that on its way over. And sometimes this path took almost 30 minutes, they said. So they discovered that this brief warming period before they were smoked, between being refrigerated and they were made in a very cold environment, they discovered that this brief warming period was the secret. And as a result, they modified their new plant to incorporate a similar period that would mimic what was probably considered an inefficiency that had to be eliminated at some point. So, I think it just really speaks to the fact that, and I love the final quote from Ira Glass in the podcast is, sometimes you have no idea why you were a success in the first place. So we have to really consider a lot of these intangibles, I think, sometimes in providing positive services to our customers. So, and also, I think an important point is that, making things more efficient can sometimes change the very nature of what it is you're making and selling. So just, I think, something to be mindful of. So communicate. Okay, so this is my field now, right? I work with this College of Communications, and I have to say, I do pick up a lot of interesting points about public relations and things like that. And I work with a lot of students frequently with library initiatives and stuff. So it is a very interesting relationship that I have with them. But there's a lot of asymmetry with communication between academic departments in general at a university. So many times a common situation that I laugh about is, I'll be focused on creating an announcement, about a really important new service. Okay. So I'm like my head's up in the clouds. And, for a great example is purchasing access to an API for a database, so now I want to let people know about this API, this technical thing that will enable them to mine text and data from the database in order to perform quantitative and qualitative event data coding and textual discourse analysis. And, so I'm like kind of trying to explain this concept and things like that. And then they'll come back to me in a response, kind of not even related to what I'm talking about, saying, I just heard that the library can deliver books directly to my office. Is that true? This is amazing. So what I always think is, it's like, oh, okay. So really, that's what you're getting excited about. And of course that's very important. But to me, I think, well, geez, I know I already told them about that when we started offering that service years ago. But, faculty come and go. I mean, we do have to be aware of that, and we have to bear that in mind. But there's kind of something else at work here. Okay, so 7. Back in my corporate marketing days, I remember learning a basic principle of marketing that they call the law of 7 touches. And believe me when I say that name sounded only a little less creepy back in the 1990s than it does today. So I'm not crazy about the name, but it's an important concept to understand. Okay, basically it posits that in order for someone to internalize or act upon a call to action, any call to action that you might be saying, it will take 7 touches in order for them to take action. Okay. And a touch can be anything from a mailed flyer, a personal phone call, an in-person meeting, social media post, whatever. So 7. It's like I never, of course, actually reached that point. And of course, it's just a rule of thumb. But it highlights the fact that I think we need to get our message out multiple times, and we have to be conscious of that. Multiple times, multiple venues, even multiple modes, making some a spoken, contact, email, things like that, things that people can read. People respond differently to different messages. Okay, and then this leads me, of course, to presence. Okay, as part of the big part of the title. Okay, love this quote too. Tony Hsieh, from the CEO of Zappos, okay, the online, formerly Just Shoes store, has spoken in the past where he has a habit of ensuring in his day that he has collisionable hours. Okay, so he makes a point of having hours each week that he devotes to being out and about, okay, being accessible. And I'm not talking about just, my door is always open, or feel free to contact me whenever you have a question. Talking about, going out of your way to be near the people you want to be in contact with. Okay, take detours through their hallways once in a while, and things like that. Okay, so here are a few things I do. Here's the big $1 million suggestion: emails. Okay, I send them emails, and I already told you, hey, I'm not all that innovative, right? But seriously, I take a regular systematic approach to this. I begin the subject line of all my emails to my faculty. I'm on their listserv. I begin the subject line with "note from the librarian." Okay, so that right away they can see what it is. And if they want to just filter it out, they can do that as well. But I try to send them out regularly. Okay, so depending on the time of year, many times it's every, say, 3 to 4 weeks, unless something critical, super critical arises. But to cut down on unnecessary emails, I keep a running list of things. Anytime I see a new announcement of a new service that we have, I add it to my list so that the next time I send out an email, I can have things that I can talk about. Even if I don't have anything major to announce, I'll still send an email out just to say, hello, how's everyone going? How's everything going? I also keep a list of things, old services that we offered that I just kind of re-announce or just kind of make sure people are aware of it. Kind of like what I was talking about before about the office delivery of materials. It's like, I can't believe people didn't know about that. So I just kind of have things that kind of rotate throughout the year that I kind of keep reminding of them. But the important thing to me is just getting that email out on a regular basis so that I'm still, in their minds. I try not to over-inform them. Okay, I try to give them just enough so that faculty can follow up with me if they need more info. Okay, the messages I need, so there's a number of different messages that I'm really trying to communicate with my faculties, and some of these messages, in addition to what I'm actually telling them about, either explicitly or implicitly, I'm trying to tell them, you are doing important research, and I want to help you succeed by saving you time, finding new resources, whatever. I also want to tell them, we care about our students, and I always call them our students. I want them to know that we can help their students. Okay, so this is a finer point, but hey, I want them to know that they can send people to me. They can send people to the library. Also want to tell them, hey, the library is awesome. Not only because we have great resources, but because you have a wonderful librarian like me that wants to keep you informed. Okay. And that's another one right there. I am your librarian. Okay. I'm receptive. I'm responsive. I'm eager to assist. This is amazingly powerful that I found. Many times, if people are at a loss to say anything about me in the college, they tell this to new faculty who are starting, or even to job candidates. They'll say, we have our own librarian, and then they say like, oh, I bet other colleges don't have their own librarian. And of course, then there's that awkward pause where I was like, well, actually they all do, but hey, I'm yours, right? But it is amazingly powerful. Something just simple as that, just them liking the fact that they know beyond a shadow of doubt who they can call in the library if they have a question. But beyond anything, the major benefit to me sending the emails out regularly is I always get an email in response from somebody, usually having nothing to do with the topic of the email that I sent. Okay. But, and it's often, hey, Jeff, I had a question about this, or, I've been meaning to send you an email asking if you could come teach my class next week, or, things like that. But, I think about it and I think, we're all so busy all the time. You think, oh, I got to send an email to somebody. And, the effort of consciously sitting down, finding my email address, typing out an email to me is just a little bit more difficult than getting an email from me and clicking reply, right? So a lot of times the kind of the purpose of that email is just getting in front of them, right? Getting in their way so that they can hit reply and go from there. Okay. I also provide another earth-shattering thing. I provide on-site reference services in Carnegie Building, which is the main building that houses the offices of faculty in the college. Again, this is not rocket science. This isn't anything new. A lot of people do this. But for 2 hours each week, I hold my Carnegie office hours, and that's what I call them. I don't call them reference service to them because they don't know what that means, of course. Office hours are something that all faculty kind of know what they are. Hey, it's when I sit around and wait for people to ask me questions. So for 2 hours each week, I sit with my laptop in a study lounge in that building. Okay, a lot of foot traffic goes by. Many hours go by where I don't have any real recordable reference conversations. Okay, what I usually think of as reference questions traditionally. That's okay, because I track my contacts and my conversations that I have. The dean of the college often walks by. Okay, she waves, she chats with me sometimes. Just her seeing me, I know that she says to people all the time, wow, our librarian actually comes and sits on, so just that value of being visible, okay, and being present there. Other faculty I rarely ever see or talk to will stop. They'll say hi. Very few students ever ask me questions while I'm there. Unless maybe in some cases, if I've set up an appointment with them and it works out for that time. And many times the faculty that stop by and they see me, with my stuff, and I have a little sign that kind of identifies me. They're always like, oh, are a lot of students stopping by? And I try to give them a fuzzy answer because, frankly, no, not many students do stop by. But the dirty little secret is I'm really not doing it for the students, right? Doing it for this faculty contact. Okay, so the value similar to the email that I was talking about is a little thing I call the 2-step drop. Okay, while I'm sitting there. Instructor will walk by. I'm like, oh, hey, Jeff, how's it going? Walk, reach for the door handle, and they stop. And they turn around and say, hey, I was going to ask you about, I was having a problem with this database the other day, and I couldn't quite figure out. Again, I've gotten in their way, right? I've collided. I've been present. And, to me, that is a huge that's a really important function of the position. Okay. So I also do things like I ask if I can attend their meetings, their events, functions. You know, they have things like student awards ceremonies for the college, um, all faculty meetings, etc. And I hear about their concerns, their problems, and other things that people generally would not take their time to tell me about. Okay. So I always say also, we sometimes don't take ourselves so seriously, and you know, we won't kind of engage them with what being a librarian is like. And I say, you know, try to be, you know, engage them in conversations about your profession, things that you're facing, because I find many times things that we might think are boring or mundane can actually be somewhat interesting to others. Okay, and then of course, collaborate. I've been incredibly lucky in my positions to collaborate with some amazing librarians and some amazing teaching faculty as well. Apologies. If you're working with another faculty member on a project, you know, in some context that you have, if you're interested at all, you know, if you do research, okay, as part of your position, I realize that's not a part of everyone's requirements, but if you're interested in turning a work with a faculty member into some kind of paper or research project, like a presentation or something like that, I say, ask for the business. Okay, asking for the business was a sales term that I used to hear when I worked with sales agents. Okay, in their debriefings, if they didn't land a sale, their sales managers would often ask them, "Did you ask for the business?" Okay, meaning, did you actually ask them if they wanted to move forward with the transaction? You know, or did you just give them a sales pitch and walk away? As librarians, I think we can sometimes not want to bother others, feeling unsure about whether we could work at their level. You can, by the way, as long as, of course, you know, if you are publishing with another faculty member, you know, as long as you are writing about the things that librarians write about and contributing that, absolutely. I mean, you are absolutely qualified to do that. Okay. Don't wait for them to ask you, because quite frankly, it's kind of the same the other way too. They don't know if you'd be interested. Many times, of course, they don't even know what we do. So many times they're hesitant to even say like, oh, do you even write? Or would you even be interested in doing this? Am I asking you for something way out of the ordinary here? So I always just say ask. I mean, if they end up passing on your offer, hey, at least you've sent a powerful message that you are in this with them, right? And that you write, you do research too, like I said, assuming that is a part of your position. Okay, so of course, finally, I will wrap up with you know, being present. Okay, it all starts with that. There are not a lot of shortcuts here, but you know, I just really encourage you to you know, build into your planning time, into, you know, when you plan for a semester coming up, planning for your next week, try to build into your planning time just ways where you can get in front of your students and in front of your faculty. And I don't always mean this, of course, in a physical sense. I mean, there's lots of ways that we can do this now, especially in today's environment. I'm sitting in a room in my house doing this. But, you know, social media, there's all kinds of opportunities there to kind of be a part of that conversation, telling them about new, you know, developments or advancements in a field or in different resources. So, you know, do that. Get in the way, get in their way, collide, you know, collide with them, you know, because these are the moments, this is where stuff happens, right? I talked about salespeople before, and I always say, you know, salespeople often get a bum rap. You know, it's like, oh, I don't want to deal with salespeople, but you know, we got to acknowledge that stuff doesn't happen unless salespeople generally are involved at that level. So, I'd like to open this up if we can, and find out from you what collisionable moments do you have. I'm wondering if we can share either in the chat, or we can. Let me end my show.
If anybody would like to share with Jeff, please go ahead and either unmute yourself or go ahead and use chat. Well, we're a quiet bunch this morning, but that's okay. I see that Julie has a thing here. She says, I have saved database searches for our faculty members. When their name shows up, I send an email with a "you've been cited" type subject line. They're generally very excited to know when somebody noticed them.
That's fantastic. That's a great idea.
Mm-hmm. So
I know myself with like Google Scholar, I always say, like, when I get those little Google Scholar alerts in my email, you know, I'm kind of like, well, hey, somebody read something that I wrote a long time ago.
Lisa says here, I too have many interests and have tried to cover everything. I have found my home in data and stats because that domain covers everything.
It does. It really does. And I think on a lot of levels, you know, with many different subject areas, you know, yeah, you can find it's good to appreciate, yeah, how that subject area kind of reaches into all others.
Amber says, we're trying to create a sense of demand by telling faculty that spots are quickly filling for in-class library instruction. So they have to act now. It's been working so far.
Yeah, that's another great one. And I've done something similar to that. Because even though, of course, in reality, if someone comes to me like 4 weeks before the end of the semester and needs me to come in tomorrow, you know, and I happen to be open, many times I'll still, of course, do that if I can. But yeah, that kind of giving a little sense of urgency, right? You know, gets people to be like, oh, hey, yeah, I should really do something here.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Jeff, this is actually a question for me. You talked about working with customers that are your external customers. How about your internal customers? How do you work with them to build those relationships? I mean, your other librarians and faculty.
That's a great question. And I primarily, I try to brand myself within the library as, you know, being the news guy, okay? Because of course within the library they always think, oh, journalism, you're the newspaper librarian, you know. And while that is a part of what I do, I often have to explain to people that, you know, journalism students and faculty are generally not looking at 100-year-old newspapers. I mean, unless they're doing a historical type story, you know, usually they're looking for data and information about things that are happening right now, you know, for tomorrow's newspaper. So I work a lot with the history librarian, who many times is the kind of creates and collates that type of stuff. But for current news sources, you know, I do try to make a point of, you know, always being happy to help other faculty when they're like, they're looking for some business news wire, and, you know, can you help them locate this? Yes, that's a excellent point. Is that you know, in marketing our services, we want to not just focus on, you know, the external customers, because the internal customers, it all, you know, ultimately it usually ends up affecting an external customer, even when you're working with the internal customers. It's a great question.
Does somebody have any other questions right now? I do have something from Amber here. She says, also faculty testimonials are great. If I can get others on a call or in a meeting to share their experience, that's a great way to get other faculty to reach out.
Yes, that is a great point. As well as I also, that's also something that like is a long-term thing. If you have graduate students at your institution, I like to really focus a lot on graduate students because, and services to them, because they are tomorrow's faculty in many cases. Plus, they also are instructors. Many times they're teaching, undergraduate courses. So I kind of look at it as a win-win. They're many times very appreciative for the services that I can provide them. They then can provide that great testimonial to their undergraduates, for using us or letting us help them. And then too, I kind of look at it as, hey, if they're getting great service now, wherever they go in the future, they will be, hey, having a great relationship with the library is a really important thing. So I kind of see it as that too.
Okay, Claire says, +1 to testimonials and informal word of mouth. Often I've pitched the same services to many, but it's this element that makes the difference.
Yep. Yeah, I know there's been so many times I've done like a session for, let's see, when I was at Altoona, I remember I created a session just about general patents and what they were. And I did it for this entry level or first level engineering design class. And the instructor found it so interesting and really liked it that I think by the very next semester, every single section of that class had contacted me about, hey, can you do that section for? So yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Lisa says, this may be too involved right now, but with your focus on journalism and media, do you have any thoughts on how we can address the misinformation that permeates the news and social media?
It's an excellent question, right? And that's the $1 million question. I do, that is something that was kind of, suddenly people were scrambling after November 2016, oh my God, how do I tell students about how to, understand news better and identify good sources? I have no magic bullets. I think although the common, it seems like, especially in our profession, the most important thing that people focus on is, of course, information literacy, and that's absolutely, an important area to focus on. But I think too, one of the things that might be neglected sometimes is it's not so much just sitting in a vacuum and being presented with a news story and determining how to figure out this news story, which is totally separate from everything, is reliable or not. And I think, unfortunately, to be really successful at evaluating news, you do have to have general knowledge. You do have to read news on a regular basis. Because a lot of times the only reason why I can tell something's off about a story is because I knew something about that story from a day ago or 2 days ago, or something about the country that they're reporting on, or, something like that. And, I think we're always kind of trying to look for these magic bullets, but I also try to encourage or try to insert in there, unfortunately, you're going to have to read the news regularly or watch the news or do some kind of, regular news consumption in order to do that. But honestly, I do not have any magic tasks or magic skills for that. But yes, it's certainly something that we're all worried about now.
Okay. Julie says, I'm in a community college and I host a support group for our employees who are working on advanced degrees, thinking they are the faculty of the future, just like you suggest.
Absolutely. That's a great, yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Julie also says they share their ideas, concerns, struggles working with online degrees, and I can often am able to suggest library resources, services that can help them with their classes, and that extends to them asking for library services related to their current jobs.
Yeah, that's and that's great. And I think the point that's important there is something that in information environment, right, that we're living in with so much, everything's online and everything is, I can pull up all kinds of, news and information instantaneously and, in the palm of my hand. The problem is it has to be summoned, right? You have to ask for it. You have to search for it. You have to go to an empty box and type in words to get it. It's not really browsable. And I think that's the thing we're missing now. And that's one of the reasons why I place a lot of emphasis on kind of keep reminding people what's there. Because if they don't know about it, they're not going to ask for it, right? They're not going to search for it if they don't know it's out there. So many times, especially if there's a type of resource that I think people might not be familiar with, I just try to really make a point of hammering that home just to keep it in their minds so that if they come up, even if they don't remember exactly where it is or what the name of the database was, they at least know, hey, Jeff, or, as they're walking by me, they can stop and say, yeah, what was that thing that you were telling me about? I know that there's this thing that does this. What's it called? I think that's a very important point. So absolutely.
We don't have any questions right now. Is there any other information you'd like to share with us, Jeff?
Not other than please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. My email address, I'm putting it in the chat, is just Knapp at psu.edu. If you are a tweeter, my handle's Nappy67. I don't do a whole lot of tweeting, but every so often I'll do. But feel free if you wanna do that. But yeah, if you have any questions, particularly about news and things like that, I'm happy to, of course, help with any questions like that. So yeah, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Jeff, for joining us today. We appreciate it so much, and thank you for the talk.
Well, thank you.
I'm seeing lots of kudos and hand clapping going on online, so that's great. And we'd like to thank everybody for joining us today as well, too, for our inaugural event. So very excited there. And we hope to see everyone over the next 7 weeks as we go through this process of doing presentations. So what will happen for people who are joining us now is that every Monday or Tuesday, you'll receive the link for the Friday session. At that point in time, you'll also receive one on the Thursday before as well, too. So you'll have that link readily available to you. Once we start those things, we'll get those out. Also, we're recording most sessions. So there will be a recording that will go out to the general community after each session as well, probably on the Monday or Tuesday following. You will receive an evaluation form after each session, so expect that on Monday as well, too. I don't want to inundate everybody's mailboxes on a Friday. That way you're not worrying about all of that stuff. But I want to say thank you to everyone who was able to participate today. And thank you for making this conference a wonderful experience. Thank you so much. And everybody have a great day.
Thank you.